restores your soul.
Yes, sir.
He don't restore you and lead you on a path to find yourself. But the psalmist says he restores my soul and he leads me on the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Literally speaking, he leads me in a way that's right so I can continue to be right with God. This is the benefit of being restored. The ancient shepherd would lead his flock always down a pathway that produced good. And so it is with my heavenly shepherd. God leads us on a pathway that produces righteousness. That's the reason the psalmist said in Psalm 119 and verse number 105 that the word is a lamp unto my feet. It's a light unto my path. And he does what he does not because of my goodness. He does what he does not because I am so good. He does what he does not because I've got it all together, but he does it because of his name's sake. See, God's name denotes power and prominence. There's no power in anybody else's name whereby we must be saved, Acts 4:12. And so it is through faith in his name that we can be made whole. It is not done because of what we do. It is done in spite of what we do, because sometimes as sheep we don't always act right. We don't always do what we ought to do. We don't always stay where we need to stay. We don't always behave like we need to behave. Sometimes we wander off and get ourselves tangled up in the wilderness, and it is the shepherd that would take time out from the other 99 and go after that one that has been lost in the wilderness. That's the reason Paul wrote in Romans chapter 5 and beginning of verse number 8, but God commendeth his love toward us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. We don't always do what we ought to do, but we got somebody looking out for our best interest. It's because of his name's sake. It's because of who he is that he does what he does. My friends, do you know the shepherd? The shepherd is my possessor. Yes. The shepherd is my provider of peace and my personal needs. But then David shows us that the shepherd is his protector. That's what David says here in verse number 4, as he goes from talking about the shepherd to now talking to the shepherd. Listen, as David talks to the shepherd, he says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, he says, I will fear no evil, for thou, he's talking to the shepherd. He tells the shepherd, thou art with me. Thy rod and staff, they comfort me. My brothers and sisters, see, as darkness would fall upon the hills of Palestine, harm and sometimes even death would begin to lurk in the midst of the darkness. Sometimes wolves, lions and bears and other wild creatures would be in ever-present danger for the shepherd. It would be that they would come and try to rob the flock and the fold. They would try to make them an easy prey because it's one shepherd and a many flock. But there was always an ever-present danger there. But though the shepherd would feel in himself safe and secure, he wanted to make sure that the sheep felt that very same way. And so as they traveled the valleys and the shadows of death, the darkness of those places where they had to go, the sheep could be reassured that they were going to make it out safe without harm because of the protecting power of the shepherd. See, the shepherd would always carry a rod or a crook with him. It's something that we would look at as a staff, but sometimes the staff would have a very sharp pointed end to it, just in case danger approached. The shepherd would have what he needed to make the enemy of the sheep leave them alone. And it's because of that understanding that David could see how the Lord was his protector. If we don't know the shepherd as our shepherd, then we're always fearful of what might happen. We're always fearful of some pending danger. We're always fearful of some senseless killing. We're always fearful of some mishap that might occur in our life. We know that every day we live, with just one heartbeat away from death. But when I got the Lord as my shepherd, I don't worry about walking through the valley and the shadow of death, because I got all the protection that I need to make it. Even when I leave this life, I'll be just like Lazarus, who was carried in Luke chapter 16 to Abraham's bosom by an angelic escort. I'm not worried about what lies beyond this life, because when the Lord is my shepherd, he'll walk with me through the valley and the shadow of death. Even the Hebrew writer understood this fact when he said in Hebrews chapter 13 and beginning at verse number 5 and that part of that in verse 6, he said, I will never leave thee, nor will I forsake thee, so that I may boldly say that the Lord is my helper, and I will not fear what man shall do unto me. Jesus puts it like this when he said in Matthew chapter 10 and verse number 28, and fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Paul says it like this in Romans chapter 8 and verse number 31. What shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? It's God's protection as the shepherd that extends unto all the dark places in life, and therefore he can provide me some deliverance even in the darkest hour of my life. Even in death, I have the assurance of knowing that the shepherd is still right by my side. Paul understood that when he wrote in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse number 8 that we are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body and present with the Lord. Death shouldn't frighten us. No darkness should be willed to us, because the Lord is my protector. And then as David moves on in verse number 5, he said that the Lord prepared a table before me in the presence of my enemies, which means the Lord is my preserver. In other words, he is the one who always shows me an abundance of grace and mercy. He is the one who shows me favor when I ain't worthy of favor. He is the one who gives it to me even though I don't deserve it. And he don't just do it in the closet, but David says that he does it in the presence of my enemies. Those who try to destroy me, those who seek to annihilate me, God sets up the table and makes me the guest of honor, and does it right in that very presence. Anybody who messes with a child of God is just like them messing with God. And so that's the reason I don't have to take vengeance against anybody, because if the Lord is for me, he's going to prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies, and they'll have to just wonder, and they'll have to just marvel at the fact that every crooked thing they didn't come to avail. They'll be wondering why I'm standing and how I'm standing. They'll be wondering why I'm still here. They'll be wondering how I'm still looking so good. They'll be wondering how I got what I got, why my health is still where it's supposed to be, why I ain't racking up with wrinkles and worried about nothing. It's because God knows how to preserve me. Oh, that's what Peter said. I ain't just making it up. In 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse number 9, the Bible says that the Lord knows how to preserve the godly and to preserve them. He knows how to keep them safe. He knows how to watch over them and not let the enemy accomplish anything against them. Oh yes, my brothers and sisters, with God as my shepherd, I've got plenty and abundance of grace and blessings. And God does that to the extreme.